So the title of my presentation is Three Things No One Told You About Autonomous Cars. I'm going to start with number one. Autonomous cars cannot exist in isolation. Now what I mean by that is if you've got I just like you to imagine a scenario wherein you've got autonomous cars and human driven cars, and this is what happens. So we've got the autonomous car which is saying, Ross, you crazy, I thought you wanted to overtake me, so I slowed down. But then Ross says, yeah, I changed my mind, you robot, I want to cut you off now. So I think every day in our driving experiences we have to deal with a lot of these elements. Drivers who are enraged, who are probably driving drunk. So when human drivers are put in the same ecosystem as robo drivers, I think we're going to pretty much end in a mess. So the fundamental idea is that the autonomous cars need to work in tandem with connected cars. So the key here is that the technology needs to be overworking. All the vehicles in road need to be communicating with all other vehicles on road. And also, as you can see on the yellow billboard there, it says Ross just met with an accident, detour recommended. So there also needs to be the elements of vehicle to infrastructure communication. The experts on autonomous cars don't have all the answers. Well, that is a hard reality. I think the experts are still struggling to find the real answers to all the questions. So here I'd like to imagine a situation where an autonomous car is going down a street and a ball comes up in front. Now a human would expect a little boy to follow, but the autonomous car is not going to predict that, and this is called inferential thinking, which clearly the robo car lacks. Also now when this sort of happens, that a lad followed by a ball comes up right in front, the autonomous car would actually adapt to it. On route number 171, I encountered a lad with a ball, and it was quite dangerous. So it's always going to drive defensive when it's on that particular street. And the human sitting in the car would never know what's wrong with it. Why does it drive so slow when it comes to this particular street? Especially that street is just next to his home. Another example is that of the flying plastic bag. So if a plastic bag comes right in front of its lidar, which is basically its eyes, it helps it see up to a distance of about 200 feet. Now I know this is more than a lot more than what the human can see, but then the whole idea is the technology needs to be working at all times in order to avoid crashes 100% of time. So if this little plastic bag comes in front of its lidar and it's going to block its view, it'll think that there is some object, and it'll detect a situation of accident, and it might actually come down from a speed of 150 kmph to about 0, and that will be a screeching halt. That would actually lead to second collision, wherein the passengers seated inside would actually collide against internal objects. This isn't as interesting as the next stuff is. I think what you're going to really read here are the 3 laws of robots. So number 1, a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. A robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. A robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or the second law. So in a situation like this, the robocar is absolutely not going to know what to do, because it cannot harm itself, it cannot harm the human sitting inside, and it has to obey all the 3 laws. Now this is Google's biggest cheat sheet. So fundamentally what Google has done is that wherever the car is not able to respond, so something comes up right in front of it, say a diversion or say a lamppost that it's not really familiar with because it's not there on 3D mapping, then it's allowed to surrender and give control to the human being. So that's the biggest cheat sheet here. So which is why the states which have passed the law for the driverless cars have made it mandatory that a human driver should always be seated inside. Even if he's not actively involved in driving, he should be able to take control and take charge of the car when there is a problem. Now, if you've seen the Google video of the driverless car, which if you haven't, I would really recommend you to go and have a look. this guy who is being driven around in the driverless car, and he kind of goes around doing his work and says that it has changed his life, is actually visually impaired. He cannot see. So that community is supposed to be the largest benefactor of this technology. Now, what happens if the driverless car surrenders and the man on the wheel is a blind man? Isn't he supposed to benefit from the whole situation? But then now, he cannot react in simple situations, see, because he cannot see. What happens in a situation where a robo-car gives up? So clearly the experts don't have all the answers as yet. Setting up the legal framework is not easy. Well, the states have been very, very encouraging. They have been very open and in sort of adopting the innovation, but definitely this is one of the fundamentally most difficult and most challenging tasks for the state and the federal governments. Now, we've recently seen the unrest in the United Kingdom, in the United States, where people protested against Uber, and these people have been mostly the micro entrepreneurs in form of cabbies and taxi drivers who are absolutely not happy with the Google-funded ride-sharing company, because it's obviously taking away their business. So, disruptive innovation is of course welcome, but it may come at a cost. So, just a quote here by Bruce Breslow, who's the director of Department of Motor Vehicles, Nevada, which is the first state to offer Google's driverless car a testing license plate. And he says, what will happen to the commercial drivers if these cars become robo-taxis? There will be taxi driver wars, like in 1970s, cars being burnt and people under them. So you have to be very careful in which segment this is implemented. It may never replace human beings. These cars may just be there for fun, to expose technology to the world. So I think we're at this very interesting crossroads where we're still trying to identify. The biggest thought leaders of the world are still really thinking about this whole challenge. Yes, there are road accidents. Yes, the number of road accidents have substantially increased. Yes, there is loss of productive man hours because we waste our time sitting in congested traffic. Yes, we need driverless cars, but what do we have to pay for it in return is a question that everyone is trying to ask. And I'm reminded of a very famous quote by Steve Jobs here, who says, people don't know what they want until you show it to them. And I think this is exactly what all the manufacturers, all the disruptive innovators are busy doing. And I think this will be a space worth watching out for. So thank you for watching my video. I really hope that these are the 3 things that you probably did not know about autonomous cars. Even if you did, it's alright, you watched my video. Thank you.